Okay, so this is the Rebbe is connecting and speaking about what the beginning of this week's parsha. It says that kindling the Menorah, and the Rebbe always emphasizes the idea that the Neshama of a person is likened to a candle. Neir Hashem nishmas Adam. Therefore, in a spiritual, metaphorical sense, the kindling of the Menorah means the kindling of the Jewish soul. And the Rebbe is going to explain who needs to do it, where it needs to be done, what are the limitations and the inclusion that this includes. Okay, so we're going to, where it says Aleph on the bottom of the first column, two paragraphs on the bottom where it says Aleph. Haseder ba'afat samayonis chutza hu loy lahamtin ad she'ela hanichlalim begeder chutza yavoil mayonis. The Rebbe uses the term spreading Chassidus or spreading Yiddishkeit. He uses a term that says in the pasuk, spreading the well springs outward. So the Rebbe says when you spread the well springs outward, you don't wait for those that are outside to arrive to come to the well and to the wellspring, but rather ela yafutzu ma'asach chutza lotzis achutza b'sham la'afetz amayonis. The job is that the wellspring has to expand and spread out until it reaches the outside, not that the outside comes in. And this is based and has to do with Aaron, who was the one that was told the command about kindling the Menorah. Sha'alav Nemar, in Pirkei Avos it says about Aaron that he was Oyev Shalom, Varoidev Shalom, Oyev Esabrius and Mekarvan LaTorah. Aaron loyhimtin ashabo elav alehigdim v'holach aleim. The fact that it says he loved peace and he brought them close to Torah means that he engaged them. And it even says, even though it's not directly related to the point that he's saying over here, but one of the classic things is about how Aaron made peace between a husband and a wife, or even between two people that were in an argument between them. He used to, of his own volition, when he saw two people arguing, he used to go to one of them and tell them, you know, that person really wants to reconcile with you, but he's too embarrassed or this or that. And the same thing, a husband and a wife. He said, you know, your wife really is sorry, but she's embarrassed to say. So what does that mean? He didn't wait for those two people that were arguing to come to him and say, could you facilitate over here a peace treaty between us? No, he went out in search of reconciling the people. The same thing that Aaron's means of bringing people close to Yiddishkeit, to Torah, was also in such a way that he didn't wait for people to come to him. He went searching for them.
That's correct, by the way, women.
Yes.
Women don't apologize. They're not embarrassed to apologize. They just don't apologize.
Top of the second column.
Well,
Yes.
The Menorah candles, right? Or
Right.
The Kohen candle, they always had the...
Exactly. That he had the seven candles that were lit in the base of Mikdash every evening.
When did the Shabbat candles start? Before or after that?
Shabbos candles were the institution of it, that it was instituted as a halacha, that was later, that was after that. And the Rebbe actually has sichos where he contrasts the difference between the candles in the Beis HaMikdash versus the Shabbos candles versus Hanukkah candles. And he discusses very interesting distinctions between them. But over here he's just talking about the candles in the Beis HaMikdash. Top of the second column, V'hu halach lebriyos, that Aaron sought out those people that were just creatures. Kloimar gam la'ela she'em bem kol yisrim ovadim yosim briyos brui HaKadosh Baruch Hu gam aleim halach Aaron v'karvam l'Torah. The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya and explains this. Why does it say in Pirkei Avos the expression that oyev es habriyos u'mekarvam l'Torah? Could say oyev anoshim. Anoshim means people. Briyos means creatures. Why does it speak about him loving creatures? So the point being that even someone that their entire, the only thing good you could say about them is that Hashem created them. He's a creation of Hashem. They have no other redeeming value. They have no other redeeming quality. Even a person like that, Aaron HaKohen went and searched that person out. He didn't wait for that person to come and knock on his door and see how can I become better and so on. Hu kirvam el hatoira, loy shekirev hatoira aleihem. This is a very crucial thing that the Pirkei Avos says. Even though Aaron went looking for these people, he didn't wait for these people to come to him. On the other hand, he didn't water down the Torah. He didn't say, well, I'm dealing with someone that's a bria, someone there's only redeeming qualities, there's a creature, maybe a creature of Hashem, maybe I need to water things down. He says, no. He brings that person close to the Torah. Not he waters down and brings the Torah close to them. He did not compromise and look for different types of leniencies. He brought these creatures to Torah, to the whole Torah, complete Torah the way it is in its fullness. The Rebbe often says this idea. We cannot obviously expect from someone to take on all the mitzvahs at once. True. You ask him first to put on tefillin, mezuzah, kashrus. But you don't tell him that all Torah is about is just the tefillin. All it is kashrus. All it is mezuzah. You tell him that there is a whole entire Torah out there. At the moment, this is what we are trying on. This is what we are beginning with. At the moment, we're doing with baby steps. Here, put on tefillin. Here, put up a mezuzah. Try keeping kosher and so on. But not that we try saying, you know what, for you, kosher is not meant for you, or for you, taras hamishpacha is not meant for you, or for you, this thing is not meant, or for you, this is not meant. We don't water down the Torah, even though we're dealing with people that are briyas. There's an interesting story with the previous Rebbe, that in a similar vein, the previous Rebbe said that when there is a fire, someone told the Frierdiker Rebbe that if there's a fire, you don't have to use the purest water to put out a fire. Even dirty water, filthy water, can put out a fire as well. So who says you need to have the pure Torah to use to put out the fire of assimilation and intermarriage and so on and so forth? So the Frierdiker Rebbe said that's only if you're using water. And the difference is dirty water or pure water. But if you're throwing more gasoline on the fire, so then you're only making it worse. By trying to put out the fire of assimilation, by watering down Torah, that's not dirty water versus clean water. That's an idea of using gasoline to put out a fire, which obviously won't work.
It's funny, I've never heard of fire being used for like the negative. We always talk about, Torah is like a fire where lamplighters are spreading from fire to fire. Right.
Base. The Kudus Avodah Shel Aaron removes a Parshat Shavua Baha'alotcha Haneres. This idea is hinted in our parsha. Neiros roims in Neshama Yisrael, like we said before, Kenemar Neir Havai Nishmas Adam, that the soul of a person is called the candle of Hashem. And B'chlolos Kayam Shiva Sugim in Neshama Yisrael, just like the Menorah in the Beis Hamikdash had 7 branches, so too, in general, Jewish souls are divided into 7 categories. K'mevorabel K'dei Torah, Shezeu Inyan Shivas Neiros HaMenorah, V'avodas Aaron Hoisa Hadlokas HaNeiros V'Ha'alosam. He kindled the candles of the Menorah, and he raised them up, because the term that's used in the parsha doesn't say, in the beginning of this week's parsha, behadlikcha es haneros. It doesn't say that. It says beha'aloischa es haneros, when you raise it up. So in other words, it's more than just kindling, as we're soon going to explain what the idea of raising up is. Bechol ish Yisrael yeshna haner eliki. Every Jew has a divine candle in him. Elishu chavu, it's concealed. Avodas Aaron he lahadlik neiras elum. What is Aaron's job? Legaloisa me'elamam, to reveal the hidden fire that's in every Jew. The kol kach Paul Aaron begil nishmas shall call Yehudi. Atchetehei shal leves oila me'eleha. The Chazal say, why does it use the term baha'alotcha neiras when you raise it up? It's not just enough to fulfill the mitzvah of kindling the candles of the Menorah by just lighting them. One has to light them till the flame rises up on its own. That's why it says beha'alotcha, when you make sure that the fire is rising up. As long as Aaron needs to stand over there and constantly lighting the wick, that's not the goal, that's not the purpose. The purpose of Aaron is to kindle those candles, the light of the Jewish soul, so that they're burning now on their own. That's the idea. And this is in a simple sense, we could see this. There's a lot of times people that are great teachers, but the student is only studying as long as the teacher is teaching. As soon as the teacher stops, or as soon as they leave school, that's it. There's no more teaching, there's no more learning.
Joseph still come?
Sure.
Yeah. Let me tell him.
I mean, it depends how far he is. So, the same thing, you have people that are great community members. They have the rabbi is very inspiring, the rabbi teaches, and the rabbi gets everybody going. But if the rabbi is not there, all of a sudden they're lost. They don't know what to do. Should I not? Should I do this? Should I do that? That is not being an Aaron HaKohen. To kindle the Menorah means that the flame is now going up on its own. Not just that I'm inspired when someone else is busy inspiring me. I'll tell a story from when I was in yeshiva. I was a bacher, a shliach in
15 minutes.
yeshiva Earl Khan Chabad. So
Los Angeles.
Yep, in Los Angeles, together with Rabbi Winner.
Yankee Winner.
Right. Now, up till then, we as Bachrim were used to, especially by big celebrations, we were always by the Rebbe. And the Rebbe used to take us to the greatest heights. It was a Simchas Torah, it was Sukkot. He was like bringing us up. As part of our shlichus, so the 10 Bachrim divided, let's say, in half, and some of us stayed for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and some of us went to the Rebbe for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, and we came back to be able to help the community during Sukkot and Simchas Torah. Now, for us at that time, that was something novel. All of a sudden, instead of being the receivers, instead of being the ones that were being inspired by the Rebbe, we now, instead of having to be inspired, we had to inspire others. So up till then, it was like, the Rebbe was holding our fire, the Rebbe was kindling our candle. That Simchas Torah, when we had to bring the joy of Simchas Torah to people, when we had to bring the joy of Yom Tov to people, all of a sudden it was a wholly different thing. All of a sudden we saw this idea that the flame is now going on its own. So, and that is what the point that the Rebbe says. The point of kindling the soul of a Jew is not just to need to hold his hand the whole time, that he's always needs to be riding the bike with training wheels. We need to train the another Jew in Yiddishkeit that they don't need the training wheels anymore. They can do it on their own, and even more so, they can inspire others as well. Okay, top of the next page. Now the Rebbe is going to analyze 3 specific halachas concerning the kindling of the Menorah and the Beis HaMikdash, and what we could derive from it in these specific 3 halachas concerning a lesson and how we're supposed to kindle another Yid. Baha'alotha HaMenorah Beis HaMikdash Yeshnam Shloisha Dinim, the 3 halachas. Aleph, Hadlaka Ksheira Bezar. One does not need to be a Kohen Gadol or even an ordinary Kohen to be able to kindle the Menorah. Gam mi she'ein Kohen kasher l'adlokas ha-Menorah. And this is very interesting because most of the service in the Beis HaMikdash had to be performed by a Kohen. For example, the bringing of the offerings on the Mizbeach could not be brought by Yisrael or a Levi. It had to be specifically a Kohen. Yet, the lighting of the Menorah, which was specifically spoken to Aaron at the beginning of this week's Parsha, and not only that, but it was even given to Aaron, it says that at the end of last week's Parsha, it was spoken about all the different karbonos that the Nesiim, that the Nasi of every Shevet brought to inaugurate the Mishkan. And it says Aaron, who was not assigned a set of karbonos, even though he's the head of a tribe, he's the head of Shevet Levi, so he felt bad. All the other Nesiim, all the other heads of tribes, they had this important job, they had this important set of karbonos, each one brought on another day. It was throughout Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The first day of Nisan, one head of tribe brought it. The second day of Nisan, the second tribe. The third day of Nisan, etc. And Aaron was looking and saying, and what about me? They left me out. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, don't worry. Shalcha gedolim shalahem. And immediately after last parsha talking about the karbonos of the Nesiim, the beginning of this week's parsha is about kindling the Menorah. And so Aaron was told, you have this amazing thing that they don't have, which is the kindling of the Menorah. But despite that, according to the letter of the law, it doesn't have to be the Kohen Gadol that Aaron was. It doesn't even have to be a regular Kohen. Exactly. Even a Yisrael could do that as well, could kindle the Menorah of the Beis HaMikdash.
Was that because it goes out after it will be lit?
It's light, it's usually lit from evening till morning. That's when it burns.
But the reason why I did about it, because let's say Kohen's not there, it shouldn't not be lit.
So it's an interesting question, why? But based on what he's going to learn from this as a spiritual lesson, so perhaps that also impacts why Hashem chose it to be also in the physical as well, because of the following lesson that we're going to learn from it. Beis, a second idea over here is Hatavas HaNeiros. There's the idea of cleaning out the candelabrum, Hachanas HaNeiros, making it good, preparing it. Tzricha li is dafkai de kohen. Here's something very interesting. Preparing the wicks, cleaning out, that is actually something that has to be done through a kohen. So this gets even more strange.
Which is like
exactly. You would think the other way around. You would think the preparation for the Avodah, that is not so important, and the kindling of it, that's even more important. Gimel, mitkoyim amidas ha-Menorah hu dafka beheichal Beis HaMikdash. The location where the Menorah was placed, we're holding on the top of 25 in the first paragraph, was in the Heichal section of the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash was divided into different sections. There was the covered area of the Beis HaMikdash, which included in it the Heichal and the Kodesh Kadoshim. The Heichal had in it the golden Menorah that was used for the incense offering. It had in it the table for the showbread, and it had the Menorah. And then past that, More inside was the Kodesh Kadoshim, the Holy of Holies, which the Kohen Gadol only entered there once a year. Over there was the Aron and so on. And then outside of the Heichal was an open air area called the Azara. Over there was the large Mizbeach that they used to bring all the other sacrifices on. But the Menorah specifically was not somewhere outside. The Menorah was in the Heichal, in that area inside the first part of the covered place of the base of Mikdash. Moving Eifish, Gam Badlach Menorah Ruchnis, Koloima Aras Neshama Yisrael, Yeshlam Shloishes Noima Elu. That this is also understood, that also when kindling the spiritual Menorah, that we said the spiritual Menorah is the Neshamas of the Jewish people, there's also these three conditions. By the way, earlier in this Sefer where I took the Sikha from, the Rebbe refers to what it says actually in the Haftorah of this week's Parsha. In the Haftorah this week's Parsha, it says over there a vision that the Navi saw. In a vision, he saw a Menorah Zav, a golden Menorah. And that was clear that the vision was a vision dealing with Klal Yisrael. So we already see that the Menorah is symbolic of the Jewish people. So once we already know that the Menorah is symbolic of the Jewish people, so now we can translate and apply what does it mean, these three specific rules, how it is in kindling the neshamas of the Jewish people. So now rule number one that we spoke about before, Aleph. Hadlaka Ksheira Bizar. That even someone that's not a Kohen also can kindle the Menorah. So what did we say? We need to kindle the soul of someone else. Don't think you need to be a Kohen to kindle someone's soul. Don't think you need to be someone extraordinary, someone unique to kindle the soul of another Jew. Avodah hashpa lazulas va'afatzas hamayonas chutza eina avodah rakli yichudis gula. It's not just meant for special people. We don't just reserve it for unique individuals. Va'arezus chusay v'chayvasay shal chol Yehudi. The Rebbe calls it both a privilege and an obligation. Many things that we do in Torah mitzvahs, on the one hand, they're an obligation, but on the other hand, they're a privilege. Like we say after Pirkei Avos, we use the term that it says, Ratzah Kadosh Baruch Hu lezakas is Yisrael. Hashem wanted to give much privilege and merit to the Jewish people, therefore He gave them a lot of mitzvahs. So the mitzvahs are both an obligation, but it's a privilege. Just to give a very simplistic example for this. A kid growing up and they feel they need to go to school. They look at it as an obligation. But we know that in many third world countries, schooling is not something that's always and readily available. Mm-hmm. And they look at us that we are privileged, that every child is entitled to an education. So in other words, something can be both obligatory, and there used to be, I don't think there is anymore this thing, there used to be truant officers, right? That if a kid played hooky and didn't go to school, the police officer can come and pull you by your ear and schlep you to school or something like that.
Now you get a digital message.
Oh, you get a digital message, right? Right, exactly. So on the one hand, it's an obligation. Yeah. But on the other hand, every intelligent person knows that's a great privilege that we and the free countries have this, that people in the third world doesn't have. The same thing, Torah mitzvahs. Torah mitzvahs are obligations. Yes, we have to have mezuzahs on our doors. We have to eat kosher. We have to keep Shabbos. But in truth, it's a privilege for us. So the Rebbe says the same thing with things that are not, let's say, explicitly written in Shulchan Aruch, like reaching out to another Jew, kindling the neshama of another Jew, kindling the flame of another Jew. It is both a privilege and an obligation, not just for the Kohen, but just like the Menorah in the Beis HaMikdash could be lit by anyone, even a Yisrael, the same thing. Each one of us, every single Yid, has the privilege and obligation to kindle the soul of another Yid. And by the way, this the Rebbe always says, that if you know Aleph and someone else doesn't even know Aleph, you're obligated to teach the other person Aleph. It doesn't make a difference how great and how much your knowledge is. The Mishnah states this to every Jew. One must be from the students of Aaron. One must be a disciple of Aaron. Meaning, we said before that Aaron was about kindling the Menorah. Aaron was about loving creatures. Aaron was about bringing them close to Torah. And in Pirkei Avos, it addresses every Jew and tells them, you have to follow in Aaron's footsteps. Al kol echad miYisrael olechas beikvis Aaron HaKohen lekarv abrius laTorah. So that's what we learn out from that first halacha. The first halacha that anyone can kindle the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. This means that any Jew has the privilege and obligation to kindle the soul of another Jew. Beis, Baram hatova hachonas haneris afsharis rachai de koyin, which we said was very strange. Lighting of the menorah, which is the main thing that anybody can do, but the preparation of the wicks, that has to be something that's done specifically by the koyin. So he says, "Hari efshar lachshoiv me'achar va'ikar hu ari lashpia al azulas." What room is there to ask, what methods am I using? Am I using kosher methods or am I using not such kosher methods? Am I removing the mechitza from the shul? Am I doing other things? Am I using a microphone on Shabbos? Whatever it is, I'm using means that are not kosher. Who cares? The main thing is I'm trying to bring this person close to Yiddishkeit. That's what should be my focus. The means shouldn't matter. All what should matter is the end. I like the famous expression, the end justifies the means. That's what someone might think. I'll explain them a certain topic in Torah according to the way I understand what that person is able to handle now. He's not able to handle mitzvahs in its fullest degree. I'll ignore it and I'll say, you're a good Jew, even if you don't put on film, because I need to get there. I'll choose what I will deal with him about. Here the lesson comes about. Literally putting the oil and the wick inside the container in the menorah. The actual thing which makes up the candle, the wick, the oil. It's only a Kohen can do that. Top of the next column. Loikol echad mesugal umasim livchoir ulahochin hagornim behamadlikim aner. Not everybody is in the appropriate state to choose and to prepare those particular means, those particular items that you kindle the candle with. Only a kohen knows and can tell you, this is the wick that you use, this is the oil that you use. What's the significance of a kohen? Why is a kohen special enough? So the kohen's unique stature is his relationship with the rest of the world is different than a regular, ordinary Jew. A regular, ordinary Jew is invested in dealing with worldly matters. He works for a living, etc. Kohen hu she'ein lechelik v'nachla atzmis. He doesn't have a part of the land. He wasn't given a section of Eretz Yisrael to be his. El Hashem unachlose. God is his portion, his lot. Ukfi Rambam Kaisav, the Rambam writes, Hashem nodva ruchai chulili bodol. A kohen is someone who is separated. And same thing within the Jewish people at present, if someone takes upon themselves to remove themselves from worldly pursuits and be engaged in Torah pursuits, he is the spiritual equivalent of a Kohen. Rak mishu muvdom mechumrius v'chol mehusay lidavik b'Hashem al avidasay. If we are removed from the material and our entire focus is to serve Hashem, he knows what means to use. He knows what perspective I need to be able to direct others in bringing Jews close to Yiddishkeit. And this is what we see. The Rebbe directed an army of shluchim and an army of bachrim and told them to go out and reach every Yid. But if there was a question how and what and where and when, this was something that the Rebbe decided and said, this is appropriate, that's not appropriate. This type of way you should do and this type of way you shouldn't do. After the Kohen set everything into motion, prepared everything, then it's the job of every single one of us to now take this direction that we get from the Kohen and to kindle the light of every Yid. To take these well springs that the Kohen directed us for and to be able to bring it outward. And point number 3, halacha number 3 is Gimel, Makim ha-Menorah ha-Mu'eresu be-Heichal davke. The location is specifically in the Heichal. Esther Kedushas Hein. It says that there are, in Eretz Yisrael, there are 10 levels of sanctity in Eretz Yisrael. So we said there's the Kodesh HaKadoshim, there's the Heichal, there's the Azara, then there's the Harabayis, the Temple Mount, then there's Yerushalayim, then there's outside of Yerushalayim, the land of Eretz Yisrael. So in other words, there's many different stages of holiness. We don't say that the Menorah is located in any holy place. It needs specifically a certain location. Even areas that are lesser than and lower than the Heichal are also holy. B'chol still in all, if one were to kindle the Menorah in one of the other holy places, a place that the Mishnah says is holy, but it's not the holiness of the Heichal, so then they would not fulfill the obligation. I could take it just a few steps down. I took it out to the Azara to light. I didn't light it inside the Heichal. One did not fulfill the mitzvah of lighting the Menorah. And here, this is actually something very interesting.
The Heichal is where?
The Heichal is the actual building that's covered by a roof. Then outside of it, there is the Azara, which is an open-air courtyard that they had the Mizbech for the sacrifices. But the Heichal had in it the Menorah. 3 major things were. The Menorah was in the Heichal, what's called the Mizbech HaKtoris, the golden Mizbech, which was a small Mizbech that they offered the incense offering, and the Shulchan, the golden table for the showbread. And then beyond that, in the Kodesh Kadoshim, in the Holy of Holies, that's where there was the Ark with the Keruvim and the Luchos and so on.
You couldn't get there until you went through this room.
Right, but okay. I know, so you didn't go there. It was you only entered there once a year. The Kohen Gadol only went.
There was no other door. That was a dead end.
That was, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So.
You have the architecture?
No, but it makes sense to make it nicer to go into the other room. You had to pass this.
Right, you go up from level to level. So you go from the Harabayis, from the Temple Mount, and from the Temple Mount you go up into the Azara, and from the Azara you go into the Heichal, and the Heichal you go into the Kodesh Kadoshim.
It has to be
elevated.
Yeah.
And it was actually. Yeah. It rose up the mountain, the Temple Mount. So the first of all there were steps leading up from different sections.
Haram al-Sharif.
and also the actual Harabayis worked, the base of Mikdash was on the slope. of the Harabai. So it kept on going up. It wasn't necessarily flat. So you kept on needing to go up with steps. So you were also going up physically. But in addition to that, this idea of not having the menorah outside of its particular location is the Rebbe explains something very interesting as a side point. On Chanukah, we have an insert in the davening of Al Nisim. And over there we say that when they were celebrating the victory of the war over the Greeks, the Syrian Greeks, so then they lit the menorahs Bechatzres Kachecha, in your in the courtyards of your holy place. And this is a very big problem. You don't light a menorah in the courtyard. You only light it inside the Heichal, inside the actual chamber, inside where the Beis HaMikdash itself was. So the Rebbe brings down the explanation for this, that we're not talking, in that particular part, we're not referring to the miracle of the kindling of the menorah. We're only talking about celebrating the victory in the war. And in Judaism, when you celebrate things, you light lights. There's an idea, it's even brought down Shulchan Aruch, that when one sits down for a meal on Motzei Shabbos, they should put candles on the table to light it. It's not like Shabbos candles, but still. Any time of celebration, we light candles. People by Shabbat Barachas will light candles, etc. So the same thing, Vidliku Neiris Bechatzos Kachecha, that it says in Al HaNisim is not referring to the menorah, because like we said over here, if you lit the menorah outside of the Heichal, you do not fulfill the obligation of the mitzvah of the kindling in the menorah. The menorah can only be lit in the Heichal.
This is where we learn fireworks from.
I guess.
Oh, Christmas lights. Still alive.
So he says, L'chol davar noyed sada pe'ula mishaloi. Every matter has its own location, its own area, its own place. V'tafkida shal menorah, who the job and the purpose and the mission of the menorah is lahoir b'heichal, to illuminate the heichal. What is this idea about illuminating the heichal? So later on, the Rebbe speaks about that the design of the windows in the Heichal was such that the windows were narrow, the aperture was narrow on the inside and wide on the outside. So if you had an external wall, the inner part of the wall, the aperture was narrow, the outer part of the wall, it was wide. And the Chazal explained this to indicate the idea that it's not about the light coming in. A normal home, the aperture would be small on the outside and wide on the inside, because it's about bringing light in. The menorah, the Beis HaMikdash, is memenu yoytze oira l'chol olam kulei. From the Beis HaMikdash, light goes outward. So that's why the aperture on the inside was narrow and on the outside was wide, because it brought it out. It was about bringing the light out from the Heichal. So the light had to be located in the Heichal. Let's see as he explains it in Dalet, bottom of page 25. The lesson of this is, it's true. A Jewish person needs to kindle both their own internal candle and the candle of another. Obviously, when you're kindling someone else's candle, you're also kindling your own. Who says that I need to do it in such a stringent manner? Yes, there are many Jewish people. We do not ask of them so much, but me, all of a sudden, we want that so much, we should do it, we should be in the utmost unbelievable state. Why is it demanded of me to fulfill this in such a form? Why do I need to be so holy and so, over the top and so careful with everything. I'll kindle my own flame. I'll kindle someone else's flame, but I don't have to be so intense about it. Lakach ba'irav, for this comes the lesson that the location of the Menorah is specifically in the Heichal. Kol echad yesh lo tafkidei. Everyone has their job. Misimasei shenoyada avurei. The mission that was set aside for him. This the Rebbe always emphasizes that every neshama has a specific mission, that for that mission the neshama came down here in this world. And we often don't know what it is. There's the famous Hayom Yom, that the Baal Shem Tov says, a neshama comes down for 70, 80 years, and he finally fulfills his mission when he does a favor for another Jew. So all we know is we need to stay on mission. What that mission is, we don't know. A lot of times in the army as well. You get a job, and you got to reach this goal and that goal and the other goal, and you might not even realize the difference between this place that you conquered or that hill that you conquered. But in truth, the entire battle was worth it just for that particular hill that you took. But by you, it's all the same. This step, that step, and the next step, it was all the same for you. So we don't know necessarily what the mission is, but we all have to stay on mission and not say, why do I have to be one to conquer that hill, etc. If a person was given the capability, he has the knowledge and he has the wherewithal and he has the spiritual capabilities with greater powers and greater capabilities to illuminate in a more holy manner. When a person wants to know what my mission is, let's see what were the capabilities I was given. If I examine myself and I see that I have certain capabilities, and I don't use all of this, the Rebbe says, that since Hashem doesn't create anything in this world for nothing, so if Hashem gave me certain capabilities, but I don't use it to its fullest, so it comes out that I'm making Hashem have wasted time in creating me with these capabilities. So the Rebbe says, I can sell myself short and say, who am I? What am I? I don't have to do the greatest and biggest things. He says, no. If I'm given those capabilities, if I have the capabilities, so then that means that this is what I have to do. And by the way, very often we sell ourselves short. We don't realize that we have the capabilities until we go out and do it. I mean, just look around shluchim, etc., and you see what they build up. You think they themselves picture this in their mind, that they'd make whatever they did. They just figured they'd go out and do whatever they could do and finish. And all of a sudden, boom, they have a Chabad house, and they have a school, and they have a this, and they have a that. Okay, but the point is that we tend to sell ourselves short, especially if we could be lazier because of it. Self-doubt. And then there's self-doubt and inferiority complex and all types of mental issues. But the point is that if we have the capabilities, that's a sign that this is what's meant for us to do. And we shouldn't do less than what our capabilities are. When he does not do everything to the fullest of his capabilities, that means that he still did not yet fulfill his job and his mission that he was placed on here, that he did not fulfill the will of Hashem. Now the Rebbe is going to bring in over here something that is a little bit of a deep concept in Chassidus, that Chassidus explains that when it comes to will, when someone wants something, but not they want it because logically it makes sense, but they really want it because it matters to who they are, and it matters deep down, so then there's no piecemeal. There's no a little bit of it. When Hashem wants something, there's no pieces, there's no part of it. Like It reminds me sometimes a person will, let's say, build a house, and they had in their mind exactly pictured every single part of the house, what it looks like. And all of a sudden, they come to the house, and there's something with the molding that's off, or something with the tiles that's off, or whatever. It's like they want to tear their hair out. Because they have this dream, they have this picture in their mind of what the house is supposed to be like, and even if a little thing of seemingly no significance is off, boom. That's like saying, they'll say, it wasn't worth it, the whole effort. I had a neighbor where I lived a little bit down the block. 3 times over, they kept on remaking the stairs going from the sidewalk to the lawn. It was like 2 or 3 steps that they just, it wasn't even anything fancy, but it was just that whoever was building and doing the construction just couldn't get it right. And this was remodeling, it wasn't, but it was just funny. Every few days I saw it being torn up and being redone. So Hashem also has a will. And if we are doing less than the will, and we are in certain regards just selling ourselves short, so it's like that molding that's just a little bit off, that just annoys us the best, the greatest. Will is not something that you do piecemeal. When it comes to ideas, it's possible for me, if someone explains to me an idea, I can get an idea partially. A bit of the idea I could pick up. Most of the idea I could pick up. So I didn't get the entire idea. But when it comes to will, either you did what was wanted or you didn't do what was wanted. That's nothing. This is the opposite of the will. Now, just like every person is unique, my job is not what your job is not what his job is. Every person has their unique mission based on the unique talents and capabilities that I was given. A person can say, well, why don't you ask them to do this? Why do I have to do this and he doesn't have to do this? Because I have certain talents that person doesn't have. And a good parent or a good teacher will know to, let's say, give certain assignments to one and not to the other. The kid is going to scream, it's not fair, why do I have a harder assignment, whatever? Because the teacher really wants to teach and bring out the capabilities of the student. They have to really think into what does this kid need and what does that kid need. And the same thing with a parent. You can't always say, well, this kid goes, some parents like to say, all kids are doing the same thing. We're all going to kiddie park. The kid's already 10 years old. Why are you taking me to kiddie park? But they don't want to have the arguments of it's not fair, whatever. Everybody's doing this. But the point is, in education, if we're trying to make them into a mensch, we have to make sure that everything is tailored according to the person. The Rebbe says also, generations-wise, the mission and the purpose of different generations is different in previous generations than it is now. Every generation has its own purpose, its own mission. Though in earlier generations, many people did not involve themselves with the inner part of the Torah. In the latter generations, that the inner part of the Torah was revealed. This very fact that the inner part of the Torah was revealed, that's a lesson. And that comes to show us that the studying of the inner part of the Torah is one of the missions and jobs of our generation. And therefore, any other alternative of saying, I'm just going to learn Gemara, I'm just going to learn Chumash, I'm not going to learn Chassidus, that's not a possibility. Like we said before, there's no division in will. Hadlokas ha-menorah melamedes yisonu. The Rebbe concludes in the last paragraph that kindling of the menorah teaches us. Drusha beisaskus b'pnimis ha-Torah. It's necessary to be involved in the inner part of Torah. Top of the next column, ukimeduber binyan hashaleves, like it's spoken about, an idea of a flame. He says in the footnote that in the flame there are two types of flame, two colors. There's the flame that's right next to the wick that has all different colors. It's yellowish, it's bluish, it's reddish, whatever. The higher in the flame you go, the less colorful it is, the more refined the color is. So it says, Shaloi dai b'nehora uchma, it's insufficient. The dark flame, which is Galya the Torah, the part of the flame that's connected to the wick is darker. That is the Torah is also likened to fire. We're talking about the positive things of fire. Torah is also likened to fire, but there's the darker part of fire. That's the revealed part of Torah because it deals with more mundane matters. There's a need also for the lighter color flame, which indicates the inner part of Torah, the more subtle part of Torah, the more refined part of Torah. The study of the inner part of Torah empowers us and strengthens us to control and be able to be victorious over all disturbances. It will add an increased life force and vitality also in the study of the revealed part of Torah and fulfillment of mitzvahs. There's a story with a chassid at Tzemach Tzedek that he once told him, he asked Tzemach Tzedek, I only have enough time to either learn Chassidus or to learn Gemara. Which one should I learn? So he said, you should learn Chassidus. So he asked him why. He said, if you learn Chassidus, you'll find that you have time to learn Nigla also. In other words, that will inspire a person by learning the inner part of Torah that gives us vitality and inspiration to do everything that we have to do in the utmost way.